Namaskar, good afternoon, and welcome to the 8th episode of the fortnightly 1 hour webinar brought to you by IHL Wellness in collaboration with Heal Foundation. I am Shankar Raj, President of Heal Foundation, and this show is live on Facebook and YouTube. In our lives, we have what is called the twilight zone or the gray area where it is neither white nor black. That is what adolescence is all about. They are neither children nor adults. It's also a formative age group, a very turbulent period, a period of defiance, experimentation, adventure, misadventure, etc. Today's topic is parenting and adolescence. And to discuss more about this, we have with us Ms. Shagun Singhal, a motivational speaker, educationist, and columnist. Ms. Gagandeep Kaur is Director of Unique Psychological Services and New Delhi and is a renowned expert in clinical psychology. She has published more than 17 books. Also joining her is Ms. Nayamat Bawa, Head Psychologist at IWIL NFC Clinic. She has 13 years of experience in assisting NGOs, MNCs, Indian Army, and hospitals. Last but not the least, we have Gurleen Kaur, the dietitian and nutritionist and the founder of Diet Chemistry. She is brand ambassador of Nutrition and Natural Health Sciences Association and a lifetime member of that particular association. Well, we have another speaker due to join, but I will start off the session with Ms. Gagandeep and also with Ms. Nayamat. I start with a common question. What are the major issues that adolescents face and how to overcome these? Starting with you, Shagun. I think Shagun is not there. Okay, starting with you, Ms. Gagandeep Kaur.
I think adolescence, जैसे आपने बहुत खूबसूरती से explain किया, it is actually the age filled with excitement, challenges. They're very explorative and very curious. So if you are asking me, is this a question that caters to challenges from an adolescent perspective or from a parent's perspective? Both. Or you want me to talk?
No, both. First parents, because they have a tough time. Then also equally tough is for the adolescents.
Okay. I believe for those parents who forget कि हम भी कभी बच्चे थे, हम भी कभी adolescent थे, उनके लिए tough time होता है. For those who remember that हमने भी नाक में दम किया था यार, तो हमारी क्यों नहीं करेंगे? So I think it is less tougher because then there is some degree of acceptance that you carry. Because you were naughty and technically you would want your children to be naughty. बहुत सीधा सीधा बच्चा वैसे भी survive नहीं करेगा आज के ज़माने में. So to have a little टेढ़ा children is to some degree benefit. Well, from a parent's perspective, सबसे बड़ा challenge आता है, how do we draw that boundary between the values and that friendship? See, we are not, I'm sorry for using the term, but we are not the Westerners where our children are our friends in every sense. So वो जो बहुत बारीक balance होता है, you know that hairline difference, where I am still your parent and yet I'm your friend, that has to be maintained together. That is one major challenge as a parent, I think one faces. Secondly, see, today's youth has an entirely different mindset of their own. अब वो ज़माना नहीं गया कि आँख दिखा दी और सामने वाला चुप करके बैठ गया. ऐसे नहीं होता है, right? They would want the logics and they're active thinking individuals. So sometimes, you know, as parents, it becomes very difficult कि किस बात का जवाब दें. कुछ चीज़ों का explanation शायद नहीं होता है. Like there are few things that are givens. You cannot, and also as a parent, I personally believe you should not answer every single explanation to your child for every question that they demand, because there are few authorities or there are few guidelines that they better follow. There are some rules, as simple as that. तो कभी-कभी वो balance बनाना एक challenge हो जाता है. Another challenge that we see today is your own home values and what they see outside. Like your son, like I have a son, तो उसके friends के पास अगर एक certain type of a gadget है, he would want कि मेरे पास भी होना चाहिए. And I may not approve of that gadget because I may believe it's not very good for your age or that's not the right time to have it. तो वो balance बनाना बहुत मुश्किल होता है समझाना, because he has a very simple statement. सबके पास है, उनके मम्मी पापा ने तो मना किया नहीं, आपको क्या problem हो रही है? Another problem is, how do we help them develop their own sense of right or wrong? I think, in fact, अगर हम गीता की भी बात करें तो वो भी यही कहती है कि as a parent आपका काम आपके बच्चों को तराशना है, उन्हें गवर्न करना नहीं है. 1 रुपया उनके लिए कमाना नहीं है आपको. You don't have to earn for your children. You have to make them capable that they can learn to earn their own living and they can have that sense of right and wrong, that sense of self-discipline and that value systems that they have, that is very tough to do, I find, in today's generation, because the outside world is very different from what you believe in. तो वो balance कभी कभी मुश्किल हो जाता है. Another challenge is, how much freedom would you give? And when you give a freedom, how do you ensure that they understand the responsibility that comes with it and they better live up to it? Because a lot of times, I'm sorry for being very blunt, but that's how I am. I find a lot of these days the youngsters have only learned to seek. And मैं उनकी गलती पूरा नहीं बोल रही हूँ, because I think जब हम लोग छोटे थे तो कभी कभी हमें लगता था कि हमें ये सब नहीं मिला. And I'm sure many parents will agree with me कि यार हमें ये सब नहीं मिला, so we want our children कि उन्हें सब कुछ मिले. And that's where I differ. Please never give the world to your child's footstep. They will never learn how to create their world on their own. वो भी एक problem create करता है. These are, I think, as a parent, that the challenges that they face. And I think from an adolescent.
Before you go to adolescent, I just have a question. You said we all went through this period of adolescence, but our world was different. There was no social media, there was no television. I don't know about you, but our world was very restricted to small things. We were not influenced by a lot of other factors. But today we have a lot of the so-called influencers, like the TV, the social media, the peer pressure. So how different is it actually for a parent to go through all this?
Certainly there is a difference. And उनके बच्चे, हमारे बच्चों के बच्चे जब होंगे, तो हमारे बच्चे जब parents बनेंगे, उनके लिए भी एक challenge होगा. You cannot have the time to be static. I mean, I don't think this is something to even complain about. There are going to be different times. Think about our parents. They would say कि जब हम छोटे थे, हम तो बड़े सीधे थे यार, हमने तो इतने shows नहीं किया. I think that's a generation statement that always comes, and that will always be there. With changing time, things will change. Certainly, technology is a concern, because now keeping a check is very difficult. आपका बच्चा लैपटॉप लेके बैठा है, बोल रहा है मैं पढ़ रहा हूँ, लेकिन साथ में कौन सी विंडो खुली है, बड़ा मुश्किल है उसको चेक करना. उसके पास एक्सपोजर बहुत ज्यादा है. मॉनिटरिंग आपका 24 घंटे आप नहीं कर सकते हो. एंड इन द टुडेज वर्ल्ड, वेदर यू आर सिंगल पेरेंट और यू आर वर्किंग टुगेदर, और यू आर लाइक अ वेरी हैप्पी मैरिड कपल, बोथ ऑफ यू आर बाय डिफॉल्ट वर्किंग इन मोस्ट ऑफ द केसेस, राइट? सो टाइम कंस्ट्रेंट्स कम हो गए हैं. जॉइंट फैमिली सिस्टम्स खत्म होकर न्यूक्लियर हो गए हैं, तो जो एक एक्सटेंडेड सपोर्ट होती थी वो कम हो गई है. So certainly challenges, and today we don't talk of parenting, we talk of smart parenting, techno smart parenting. So a parent by default will have to pick up and be at par with children's technological tools to be able to sound that, sorry, dude, you may be more smarter, but we are not idiots enough. We know what you're doing. I mean, you need to create that impression somewhere. So I think in that sense, yes, there is a little difference. पर वही तो मैं बोल रही हूँ, मेरा इसीलिए पहला सवाल ये था कि यार वो वैल्यू सिस्टम, सो कॉल्ड संस्कार देना थोड़ा ज्यादा टेढ़ा काम हो रहा है, because things are changing outside.
And what adolescents, you are supposed to come to that point.
Yeah. From an adolescent perspective, I am just quoting what my son often says to me. He says, आप ना पुराने जमाने के हो, आपको नहीं पता हमारा जमाना.
That's common everywhere. Everywhere it's common. You're an old-fashioned person.
But I am an old-fashioned person also. I would really admit to it. I am more of that Ramayana Mahabharata, some old character I belong to. So I would not even deny with what my son says. Agreed. But I think adolescent का भी perspective challenge यही होता है यार. देखो, for them, it is very important to be accepted by their peers. And today's, the notion of what is acceptable is so different. Because now, a lot of times my son says कि मम्मी अगर मैं महंगा गिफ्ट नहीं दूंगा ना बर्थडे पर, रिटर्न गिफ्ट, हमारे जमाने में रिटर्न गिफ्ट्स नहीं होते थे, because and it was a very small thing where we learned that you have to give sometimes and not get anything in return. You must learn to give. It's a very small act. मगर अभी ये होता है कि if I don't wear a brand, if I don't do this, my friends will not approve of me, because that's the entire culture that is happening. And finding children who value you for who you are and not the money and the gadgets and the canteen parties that you give is little hassle for the child too. This is one certainly challenge that he does experience. Yes, even they have the same issue कि यार कितनी टोका-टाकी करोगे, अपना ज्ञान मत दो, हमें हमारे हिसाब से करना है. And a lot of them will feel, there's something known as adolescent flaws. मतलब हर adolescent को लगता है कोई हमें नहीं समझता है, हमने जो किया वो किसी के साथ नहीं हुआ. These are, we call them as adolescent fables. या जो मेरे साथ हो रहा है वो किसी और के साथ नहीं होगा. I'm so unique, I'm so different. They'll have that inflated sense of self. So, how to draw that boundary between real and real is another challenge that they experience. There are work pressures certainly at them. I think that the adolescence today is very different. Your education systems and with the expectations, the skill set that we expect from these children is way far more developed than what it used to be earlier. So keeping up with the challenges, learning how to keep focused among all kind of distractions that you have, the kind of experimentations that you want to do, भाई मजे कौन नहीं करना चाहता, वो हम बैलेंस, वो थ्रिल कैसे हम मेंटेन करें और मम्मी से कितना छुपा लें और वो पकड़ लेती है. So my personal private time, by that I mean my secret time, and that's the sharing time that I want. I think that's another challenge that they do experience. That's how I see it.
Yeah, fine, very finely put. In fact, when my son tells me that I'm old-fashioned, I tell him, please record this and keep it, because your son, when he reaches 18 or 17, he will repeat the same sentence and you will have no answer. So that's what I tell him, and this continues for every generation, because we become old-fashioned, new fashion comes in, and every third generation, the old-fashioned fashion becomes the new fashion. So that's how the whole thing. Yeah. What about you, Ms. Niyamat? What's your viewpoint?
So for parents, I think it's a very slippery slope, because, this is also a time when they are feeling the most sense of loss and lost as to what to do with, an obedient, compliant child. Just one fine day has different ideas, more need for freedom, independence, self-determination. And so what do you do with that rebel or those new things? And how do you balance that out? Because, of course, there will be disagreement. There will be a different viewpoint for everything. And how do you actually come up with something which is more balanced, sometimes given, sometimes not, when to give in, when to not give in? And I think these conflicts need to be really, really expected by parents. Nobody speaks about them. Everybody speaks about how we need to have compliant children. We do understand that adolescence it's just left at that adolescence is a very difficult stage. They are neither adults nor children. They are lost. But, for the parents, how do you really deal with them? How do you deal with all their, aspirations? How do you deal with an adulthood or decision making, which they feel with, that might not be very age appropriate? And also, I feel that for parents, it's very important to understand that when there is a conflict, how do we resolve it? How do we react in those conflicts? And your own needs and your own desires should not be forced upon or entrusted upon the child. But at the same time, we are not very, very permissible and permitting every single thing that the child is asking for or the young adult is asking for. Because, like how, Gagandeep said, was that you shouldn't provide everything on their doorstep, a world because they wouldn't know what to do later. So I think, and for young adults, I think adolescence is, at least for me, I think it was one of my hardest, because suddenly, I had a lot of academic pressure. I remember myself as an adolescent, I had a lot of academic pressure. I had a lot of pressure from peers of how to look, talk, be. Suddenly there was this awareness of music and, movies, and there was so much sudden awareness of, attention from the opposite sex. So it just seemed like everything just changed. One fine year, academic year, I think everything just changed. And I don't think anyone helped me out with it. Like, nobody told me, oh, you're going to feel this way, it's okay. Everybody said, no, you shouldn't be, talking back to your mother, or you should be doing your, homework as usual, or why is there an academic pressure? You should study more. So, but there was no help that, was, and I feel that even for young adults now, everybody tells them what not to do, but nobody is telling them what is normal. It's okay. You will feel like this. You can feel like this. You can have, an attraction which is one-sided. The peers will tell you, oh, you like that girl, but wo to tere ko bhav bhi nahi deti, yeah, you like that boy, but he's not even talking to you. So what are you like, going gaga about? And so, I think those are the small things with which really make this time extremely, I think, heavy also. And of course, there are so many bodily changes, and which are, which are so unwanted sometimes. Nobody's looking forward to acne and greasy hair, and and there are times when lots of boys don't want to go to school as well, because their voice has changed or become heavier, and peers are making fun of them. So I feel that these are certain things which are extremely stressful for teenagers. And I don't think it's just now, but I think social media is the added tarka of problems. But I think every generation has had their set of teenage issues. And it's also a stage where they are bringing forming their self identity, a strong sense of self. And that should be so I think that's again, where it gets a little tricky, where to stop that, or kind of, not go with that, and sometimes actually help them develop that sense of self also.
Yeah, I quite agree with you that, for an adolescent, it is suddenly an explosion of coming from various directions, an explosion of experimentation of this, that, and then for parents also, it's quite difficult to, deal with this this explosion. But then, as you say, every generation has got its own problems. So, Ms. Shaun, you were not there for the first question, which was a common question. And the common question was, what are the major issues that parents and adolescents face during this particular phase of transition for the adolescents?
Thank you, Dr. Shankar. Thank you, Heel, for having me on board. I apologize. There was a massive power cut and I had to exit. But I hope I'm audible now.
You're perfectly audible.
Thank you. Okay, so it was such a pleasur hearing Gagandeep ji and Niyama ji regarding their views, and I think they've covered most of the points. But I'm going to speak from my perspective, what I have seen with the students when I was with the Genesis Learning Studios. I was dealing with a lot of adolescents as the ex-director there. I'll talk about some facts, Dr. Shankar, here. The issues that we deal with are more from the perspective, I'll speak from the parents' perspective, more than the adolescents' perspective here. When we're fighting with them, we're all talking about arguments with the children. We don't stand still. We are always dictative because we gauge parenting with experience. That is one issue. That is the key issue between adolescents and the parents that we face. Second, being heard is a major problem from the child's perspective. It is always about being right for the parent because we have the experience. So you must listen to us. So let's revise ourselves as parents. We really need to rethink that every time we hear the child, the child is going to consider our advice even more seriously. But when we don't listen and we always butt in because of experience, that is when the children start taking us casually. And then we blame social media. Of course, social media has more knowledge than the parents, let me tell you. They do. And we all parents have to agree with it. I'm just speaking facts right now. Issue number 3, children are very smart. Adolescents are always going to jump between childhood and adulthood. You give them responsibility, they won't take it because they want everything on the silver spoon. But they're trying to be independent. And then the horns of the parents stand up and they say, oh, I'm the experienced one. I want to take control of you. You know why? Because I've produced you. So, Dr. Shankar, I don't know if I'm able to specify, but the issues rising are very, very crucial. Separating the behavior and the child. How many of parents do that? Every time a child misbehaves, we link the personality of the child with the child. Can we just do away with the behavior and just look at the child? Because the behavior is always guided by a need. Suppose if he's shutting the door and if he's sitting in front of his computer screen for long, and if he says, I don't want to meet friends, can we just look at the need why he's doing that? instead of just judging him that, oh, he's an isolated child. Issue number 5, freedom, control freak. Like Gagandeep ji said, she said that nuclear families, you're producing only one child or maybe 2 children now. पहले ज़माने में 8-8 बच्चे होते थे. Dr. Shankar, सब पल जाते थे. We all are doing very well, right? We were like amongst 2-3 siblings. Now you have one child, you have one focus of attention as a parent. You don't want to lose control. You want your control on the child because you feel, we balance it with ego that we are not super parents. And if you're not able to manage and control the routine of the child, and we will fail as parents somehow. So these are the basic 5 issues that I look at, Dr. Shankar, which are very, very crucial in balancing the issues of adolescence.
Yeah, you have all three of you have spoken about these problems that you face. But at some point of time, whether it is personal or even otherwise also, you feel so frustrated that you want to hit your head on the wall and, you do not know what to do. The same issue is there for the children also. They say that you don't understand us, so and they walk out of the house and, a lot of things happen. And another factor is when things come to a boil, there is also this tendency of the father saying, oh, you're just like your mother. And the mother says, you're just like your father. And the blame goes this way, that way. So how do you deal with this particular frustration? What is the best way to get out? Do you have to depict it in front of your child? Yes, Ms. Gagandeep, it's starting with you.
As what I simply do is, भाई बहुत सीधी सी बात है, भाई गुस्सा तो सबको आता है. और एक point पे, when you're trying to explain, you try very coolly, calmly, try and explain them with logics, and sometimes you feel that they are arguing for the sake of arguing, as simple as that, right? And there is a point where you find your child very, very closed. And I think that's where what I do is I remind myself, मतलब एक आधी चीख निकल जाते हैं मेरी भी, बहुत honest सी बात है भाई. लेकिन उसके बाद I would remind myself कि there is no point यार, अगर मुझे बॉटल में अमृत डालना है और अगर उसका ढक्कन बंद है, so I'll have to either learn, find a way how to open it or wait for it to loosen on its own so that I can pour into it. So what I normally do is I tell my son, I mean obviously at that point, कि बेटा एक काम करते हैं, we'll talk about this. And I normally would not react at that point because I know no matter how much I'll put it right now, he's going to argue back only to prove a point that he is right. It becomes about who is right. And I don't want to be a part of that competition because once I do that and I'm reducing myself to a very, very low level with him in the sense in terms of age, not in any other manner, then I'm acting like an adolescent or maybe a kid, not even an adolescent. Right? And I would not want to compete with my child. I would rather want him to understand and even demonstrate the same, that we can agree to disagree. And second thing that helps me sail through, which I believe can help a lot of parents, would be, यार ये मान कर चलो, आपका बच्चा आपकी duplicate copy नहीं होगा, होना भी नहीं चाहिए. You would want them to be better versions as far as possible, and your better versions are going to be different from you. तो conflict तो होएगा ही होएगा. And कहीं ना कहीं, and again, I'm quoting again what Gita again says, कि every one of us are born with a purpose और हम सबका अपना अपना कर्मा है. As a parent, I can only show the path. Even there'll be times when I know my child is walking on a wrong path. मैं बोल चुकी हूँ यार, नहीं समझ में आ रहा. I'm sorry for being very rough, पर कभी ना कभी आपको वेट करना होगा कि गिरने दो उसे छोटे से खड्डे में, because कुछ ठोकरें खानी जरूरी होती हैं. उसके बिना समझ में नहीं आता, तो हर ठोकर बचाने का काम वो boiling up और वो frustration develop करता है. And that's what I tell my son at that point. Beta, I think this is what needs to be done. Well, choice is yours. And then the drum is yours, the music is yours. Bear the consequence. So and I've often seen that adolescents are smart enough people, yeah, when you put the responsibility on them, that's when they take 2 minutes back to think, acha karna kya hai? So I think that's what works for me.
What about you, Ms. Nyamat?
I think that's a very important point that Gagan just said, was that it's very, as a parent, you can show, there will be, like I said, conflicts, and there will be frustration that is built in the adolescent, in the parents, and we will unfortunately, run into to those crossroads way too often than we would want to. But instead of bickering on who's on, pinning the fault on the other parent or the child or who's at fault, I think that's where we get a little lost, and we are more problem focused than solution oriented. And it's at that time when, we need to sit down and really, like, even Gagan said, like, not be the adult and not the adolescent or the child, and really sit down and maybe look at, different ways of doing it, and then entrusting the responsibility on the adolescent of how they would want to do it. And like she said, the consequence has to be borne by the child, because many times, there are times when, they're forced to do something, and there is a backlash to that, and the child comes back and says, this is what you told me to do, and see, look what has happened. So I think that's also a very important way how we start helping them make decisions in their lives and decisions for themselves, and also being open to that a decision may go very well and may not go very well. And when it doesn't, there is a consequence or a backlash, and we got to be open to it, and we need to, and if we fall at that point, we have to, just get up and get going again. So we're also helping them to actually prepare them for future challenges, failures. And these days, at least the young adults that I'm seeing, none of them have seen very major failures as such. Nothing is off limits. Nothing comes difficult. There is a tutor, teacher, parent who's doing even the holiday homeworks or the projects, or everything is like mixed and made like a nice, and they just have to open their mouth to just chew it. So there is no struggle in terms of certain aspects, but the struggle is on a different side altogether. Struggle is about competing with the peers, keeping in being the cool person in the peer group, or getting involved there. Emotional struggles are more, but the rest is all cooked and served on a platter.
What about you, Ms. Shagun? Well put. I think Nayawat, I think it was well put. Ms. Shagun, what about you?
Yes, Dr. Shankar, could you repeat the last liner of your question so that I can answer that clearly? What was the question?
The question was that, you have a lot of frustrations when you deal with these situations. You like bang your head on the wall, and, and adolescents also have the same issue. So how do you deal with this?
Yes, I heard the banging of the head, but I didn't hear the
wall.
All right. Yeah, I think very interesting. So according to me, I'll just go purely by real life incidents of when I was coaching adolescents. And we had this workshop, and it's very interesting. We have had some facts from our panelists right now, but I'll tell you a real life incident on this. About 25 people in that workshop, all adolescents, and some teachers, some of us, some board members. And suddenly a girl comes up, young girl, and she says, "I hate my mother." And some parents were attending the event. And can you imagine, the mother was busy scanning through her phone. Suddenly she looks up and she believes that her daughter in a gathering of 30 is saying, "I hate my mother. She doesn't give me my space." And she burst out crying. So I want to answer your question with a reality check of somehow down the line. I think the generation has changed. We all know that. Parenting also has changed. But the parents who are considering parenting as an identity and not as a responsibility are banging their heads. But the parents who are taking it as a responsibility are still on the lighter note. You know what? I think it's not important to be perfect in parenting. I look at, if you look at the issues, parents need to identify the need to escape from the world, shutting yourself in the room. If you look at need for approval, you will always be hanging out. You'll see your children hanging out with friends who are always praising them. They can't be around normal people. If you're around normal people who don't give you attention, they feel very aloof. But if you're around friends who are very all the time pampering them, you want to be in that environment and you cut off from your parents. That is the time you understand that need. Need to be independent.
It's 14:30.
Need to be independent. You're saying something? They are saying something, you backlash, they backlash. There has to be a sort of a listener from the parental side, and then you believe these issues minimize. And you know what's most important in these issues is every time the child goes wrong, I think we really need to believe that we don't have to find solutions to every problem. Even we go wrong. We are going wrong, we went wrong, but we're still learning with our experiences. So we don't need to ask the child, why did you do this? I think the whole question of why ruins the issue. The head banging stops Dr. Shankar when we replace the why with what made you do this. So I'm talking about real life statements and conversations with the adolescents, which can find solutions for parents.
Now I'll come to Ms. Gagandeep with a simple question. Adolescence is a time for experimentation, a great experimentation. How serious is the issue of experimental sex and the issue of peer pressure?
So the problem is that the way we look at sex or even relationships, I think that's where is something that we need to focus more on. Because today, by default, a lot of us have, and I'm talking from what a lot of other children say about this. They say, well, ma'am, प्यार व्यार ना यही होता है, just have fun and that's how it is. एक नहीं जम रहा दूसरे के साथ करेंगे, दूसरा नहीं जम रहा तीसरे के साथ करेंगे. मतलब the mindset is such that we have reduced ourselves to commodities and we're looking which commodity fits us the best. I think that's where I have a problem. But having attractions, having mohabbatein inside and the butterflies and all is very natural and normal, and it's a healthy part of development because you end up learning a lot of interpersonal skills only when you're attracted towards the opposite gender. But everything has a right time. See, even biologically, before the age of 18, if you get intimate, your reproductive tracts have not fully developed. Your immune system is not fully developed. Your chances of developing STD are very high, which children don't understand. Many a times, the kind of shartein ye samne rakhte hain ki commitment kiya, okay, you send me these nude pictures, only then I'll believe that you're committed to me. If you're willing to have sex with me, you're committed to me. I mean, the commitment comes at such superfluous kind of or a useless kind of statements, jo hawa mein yu dhuएं ki tarah ud jate hain. And that's when I think we need to, instead of checking कि तुम किसके साथ किस पर्दे के पीछे क्या कर रहे हो, स्कूल के किस कॉरिडोर में कहाँ हो, I think more than that, we need to tell them what you're doing to your own selves when you reduce the other to a commodity, you're reducing your own self too. Secondly, what are the, it's like आप जो खुद को feed कर रहे हो, उसको तो आप deny नहीं कर सकते ना. So when you're changing so many partners, down you're also giving an impression to your own self that nothing is stable. And that's how it happens. And also, we are doing that big basket sale. But the relationship is like a big basket sale. चलो जाते हैं, boyfriend 1 का ये ले लेते हैं, boyfriend 2 का ये ले लेते हैं, तीसरा कुछ एक tailor made बना लेते हैं, because which means, and that is also reflected in their relationships, that tolerance is zero. Yeah, you can never have someone who is going to be as per your terms and conditions, and we're not even willing to accept the other the way they are. I think wahan problem zyada hai. I do not have a problem with somebody falling in love with someone, but I think the very definition of love, the way they look at relationships, this is one. Second, when we talk of sexual experimentation, it also talks about the orientation confusions that you see in the adolescents at this particular age. See, many of them don't even know कि हम कौन हैं, हम gay हैं, lesbian हैं, तो कई बारी हम सिर्फ experiment कर रहे होते हैं out of curiosities. And there is a lot of media influence and again, a lot of information, but the right information or the information with the right attitude probably is not there. I think that is another thing that adds to the confusion. There is no harm being a gender fluid person or a pansexual or whatever, or even an LGBTQ or the queer community. But before you label yourself, before you declare anything, I think you need to figure out who you are by knowing than just by experimenting. The experimentation becomes more the behavioral manifestation of something that you're not even fully equipped with. I think that's how I like to look at.
Right. Quite well put. I think that's the stage where these people are. I think, as you said, it should not be commoditized, as what you said. Now I'll come to you, Ms. Nayamat. You did mention earlier in your talk today that you suddenly become body conscious when you're a teen, and you have a lot of developments which you are not, of course, ready for or you didn't expect. Now, adolescents also have a problem of being obese or being extra thin. And there's a lot of body shaming also happening across. So how do you deal with such? How can adolescents deal with such a situation? You're mute. Can you unmute yourself?
I think one of the things is that, when the body, when you reach your adolescence and hitting puberty, the body changes are very drastic. Before you know it, it's done. It's not a very gradual thing. And accepting those changes sometimes can be very, very painful, especially if they are related to, in terms of weight, if they are related to appearances, change of appearances. And it does take them some time to actually get used to the new way they look. And I think preparing these adolescents is very important. This will happen. You would put on a little weight, you will have a little weight on your breast now, or you will feel a little, you will get taller, or you will not get taller, or you will, have these spurts of growth at this point in time. And, or you might have acne, which is very normal and it can be treated. There's no problem. But you know what, as even families I've seen, I don't know what he does. I've told him not to have spicy food, this food, that food, but yet he does it, and he has acne, or she has acne on her face right now. So we are not we are not talking anything about body positive, but we are talking in a way which is making them even more and more conscious about their appearances. One, that they are conscious about their appearance, but the conversation at home, school, peers is all about what has changed in your appearance. And I think that is a big, big burden. And if we are prepared as a family, prepared as a class, it's much easier for everyone. But I think that preparation doesn't happen. I don't even think that many schools have, sexuality education in their curriculums, but boys are put separately, girls are put separately, and they are told not to have sex. That's like the aim. But nobody is addressing, unless they are coming to sessions to a psychologist one-on-one. Some parents are very, very, open about, they read, they explore, but a lot of young adults do not know what's coming up next for them, how to deal with it, what is the change. And if we have those prep stages very well, I don't think they will be feeling so much of it as they feel it right now. I've also seen a lot of young adults who have gone, searching on the internet. And once they see that, oh, there are other people like me who don't know too much about their orientation, or they don't know what is going on with their body, they feel very, very supported at that time. So, there are some young adults who will go back and, search the internet of what problems they feel and resonate with something. But that can misfire as well. So if we have a, reliable source that gives them that support, or a support system through this, that's way, way more better.
Well, correct. That's absolutely right. And now I'll come to Ms. Shagun. Ms. Shagun, this adolescent parent issue is, always in the plane of emotion. So how do you establish an emotional connect between a parent and a very rebellious or outspoken kid and equally outspoken parent? So how do you establish this emotional connect, which is very important?
Very important question there. I think that's the key question for the hour. I take it as like a very, very valuable question, because I think it's all about, finally, how do you feel? At the end of the day, all the research work, all the hard work that we do, we just want to sit together and smile as a family. Now, how do we do that? How does that emotional connect actually happen? I think behavior is quite as much linked to a lot of activities happening in the brain. Of course, medically, I'm not the right person to talk about it. But yes, as a motivational speaker, what I have witnessed and noticed is that the brain issues are very subliminal. They're very in the air. Sometimes the parents are not able to understand it. What happens? So now you look at the need. So there is greater emotional intensity in kids. What happens? They're happy, sad, arguing, anger, frustration. These are sort of emotions that you suddenly come across when you look at a child, right? The need for connection, deeper friendships. I want best friends. I have my best friend. She is my best friend. Look at the kind of passion that they speak with, right? Are you not able to provide that sense of talk that the child is looking out for best friends all the time? Emotional connect. The need for novel high. We were just talking about the sexual engagement at a young age. You want to explore. You're getting younger faster. If we got younger at the age of class 6th or 7th, I think the girls are getting younger at the age of class 4, right, Gagandeep ji, if I'm not mistaken? Class 4, class 3.
8 years for girls and 10 for boys.
10 for boys. The age has come down, of course. Nobody's blaming anybody. Nobody's blaming the act. But yes, the age, the connection for novel high. They will explore earlier because the world has changed. The exposure levels have changed. And we have to allow them that. We can't be like, hamari age mein ye hua tha, tum bhi yahi karo. It has to happen early because the times have changed. Need for creative exploration. The parents are very scared of water. The parents are very scared of bungee jumping. But the child is very adventurous. Let the child do it. He's not going to die. The world is doing it. Because you are scared, you don't let the child explore. Emotional disbalance. Don't go into that boat. If you're going for an excursion with your friends into the sea, don't take the deep sea snorkeling. It's very scary. You'll sink, You can't do that. The child is all the more, next day you'll find pictures on Instagram and on social media of the child engaging in deep sea snorkeling in the deepest sea. And then you'll have a fight when he comes back home because you didn't do it. Emotional connect. Shaming the child. Talking in front of 10 people, thinking that if I shame the child in front of 5 people in the house, maybe it scares him. It will make him feel that, I shouldn't do it again. That is the worst that we can do in terms of emotional connect. This is where the emotional disconnection happens between the parent and the child. I'm sorry, but today I'm just standing by the children because I have spoken to umpteen number of parents and I myself am a parent. And somehow I'm not able to understand the new age parents. I'm really not able to understand because I really believe that our adolescents are very, very sharp in their minds. They deserve their emotional respect. They deserve their space. They deserve their liberty. They deserve their freedom. You give them a phone, they will inform you if there's a problem. Don't keep clinging onto the phone all night. I was out with a cousin and his mom was calling all night till 4 a.m, every half an hour. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Are you fine? Is it okay? Is there traffic? And we all were like, dude, you're grown up. Please ask your mom to get a pet. So I was talking like that. So I want to say that the emotional connect can only happen when we maintain a fair balance of being a minutely friend to the child, but yet at the same time, not being a pokey, nosy Parker parent at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's quite correct because thanks to the ubiquitous cell phone, our nosiness has become more sharper and we are keeping track of them and the GPS is there. All these things can keep track of our child, which we don't want. And now I'll come on to Ms. Gagandeep. Adolescents, they take to drugs easily and very fast. They are either consumers or carriers. Why is this so, and what is the role of parents? Is it because they often take a back seat or are overconfident that their kids cannot do such things?
Sir, anything that has to do with drugs or any form of addiction, be it mobile gadget or any form of addiction, माना ही जाता है कि कहीं ना कहीं psychologically उनका sense of self deficient है. So there is a need to be popular. Like you had asked Nyamat also and Shagun too, ये body image issues or emotional connect ना इसी से जुड़ा हुआ ही है. So when I'm not very comfortable with who I am, when my worth depends upon my external factors and not the character that I carry or the person that I am, and when I'm not finding that emotional connect or I don't feel understood at home and I want to be popular or accepted by peers or I want to look so cool where there's a people or that girls or boys, of the opposite gender falling for me, that's when I would want to imitate something like that. And that, so they are all connected together. I think हम सभी लोग थोड़ा बहुत एक्सपेरिमेंट करते हैं, समझ में आता है, मगर जहां पर कम्युनिकेशन नहीं होगा, like emotional connect or any of these things, or say telling your children not to do drugs doesn't come overnight. You can't say, okay, fine, now I'm freer, I have time, 1 hour, come on, let's talk, and now we are very good friends, types. It doesn't happen that way. So a parent who keeps communicating with a child, even if you can take out at least a meal time, where for, say 5-10 minutes, if you guys could talk before sleeping, and just a general conversation, how your day was, who your friends are, what you did, I think that keeps you more informed कि मेरे बच्चे की संगति किसके साथ है और वो शराब खाने में कितने दिन दूध का ग्लास लेके बैठेगा. So I'll have to help him figure out कि भाई किस तरह के पार्टनर्स, किस तरह के पियर्स तुम चूज कर रहे हो, किस तरह की पॉपुलैरिटीज तुम देख रहे हो, और इतना कंफर्ट तो होना चाहिए कि वो बोल सके यार मेरे फ्रेंड ना आज उसने सिगरेट लेकर आया था वो स्कूल. He should not feel कि यार मैं फ्रेंड की बात कर रहा हूँ तो मेरे पेरेंट्स सोचेंगे तूने खुद भी किया होगा, तूने भी जरूर पी होगी, तू झूठ बोल रहा है टाइप्स. That sense of comfort needs to be there. And otherwise, experimentations are always there. And I think some amount of myth busting needs to be done. Where a lot of adolescents think, क्या है यार, will power की बात है, हम कर रहे हैं, हमें सब पता है, सब control है हमारा. And a very simple question is, the moment you smoke or you drink, does your receptors listen to you कि यार इतना ही serotonin निकालना, इतना ही dopamine निकालना? It doesn't happen that way, right? Even when it comes to sexual intimacies, a lot of children will say हमें हमारी boundaries पता है. तो फिर ऐसा क्यों है, चाहे हम जंगल की बात करें या वेस्टर्न वर्ल्ड की बात करें, any culture, बातें निगाहों से शुरू होती हैं, बिस्तर पर अंत होती हैं, और एक standard pattern है. Because when you touch anybody or when you're doing any such things, you don't tell your brain कि 2 ही endorphins निकालना, which are pleasure releasing hormones, 10 मत निकालना. So there are few things that are not in your control. I think that communication has to be therein, and that's when we can help them understand and avoid comparisons. हो जाते हैं, बड़े natural सी बात है, कुछ भी कह लो, हम तुलना कर ही देते हैं कहीं ना कहीं, but we can only be a little more mindful. So इनमें से तू ज्यादा खा रही है, मोटी हो रही है, तेरा बॉयफ्रेंड नहीं बनेगा, body image issues, right? So I feel very low within, I have low self-esteem, so what will I do? Do I look for something which is shortcut to fill that pleasure? So drugs is a beautiful thing. They give you a high, just have one sip, have one LSD and you're on the 7th cloud. You don't need anybody. So I think the escape that they have, where they don't deal with the emotions, if they deal with them, a lot of these issues can be handled with.
Yeah, this is a form of escapism, especially when you do not know what to do. You don't have a parent to talk to. You have peers, and and there's even issue of loneliness among a crowd. That's also an issue for youngsters. Ms. Niyamat, of late, there are reports that teenage pregnancies are on the rise, and we have, of course, laws for abortion and other things. Do this lead to a lot of course, most of them abort, but do this lead to a lot of mental trauma among the teens and adolescents?
I think especially amongst the girls, there is a huge sense of shame and guilt as well. So they are all talking about, hooking up or having sex or whatever, but pregnancy is still looked out as something which is a taboo. And even with the young adults, pregnancy or having to abort and it's a lot of distress that the girls go through. And a lot of them are going through it, and there are long-term ramifications of it, because bodily, your hormones are just about stabilizing. Your sexual, system is just about stabilizing. Your hormones are just about stabilizing. And any sort of, emergency contraceptive pills or, abortion pills really, really hampers your, hormones and your bodily systems. And that, of course, has a huge impact on yourself, your emotional self, and everything. Also, pregnancy in itself, brings in that you like it or not, you don't want to be pregnant. But even if you are having, an abortion, there is a huge emotional impact on especially the girls, because somewhere the body is preparing you for I think maybe he's okay. The body is preparing you for
Niyamat, go ahead.
okay. Yeah, so the body is preparing you for, having a child, and here and but at the same time, your body is, you are societally not ready, or you're not ready yourself. So there will be that sense of loss, guilt, also self-esteem issues. Most of these relationships where the pregnancy occurs are relationships which are not long lasting, or they are just, teenage love stories. They are there today, they won't be there tomorrow, and that itself has a lot of impact. So I think, when something like this happens emotionally, it's very, very distressing, and it really puts the people involved, at risk for, further very severe mental health issues in the future also.
Yeah, Miss, that's correct. A lot of mental stress is there, and especially the girls have to face these issues and it's a major concern.
I think boys too. I would discount them from, the distress of, because I think more and more adults have, a lot of them would also know what consent is, joint ownership, or joint owners of something like that. So I think sometimes, but of course, primarily it is, the backlash is on the person whose body goes through something. So yeah.
Ms. Shagun, what are the adolescent activities that can make a difference? Ms. Shagun? Can you hear me, Ms. Shagun?
I can hear you.
What are the activities that can make a difference in adolescence? Adolescent activities that can make a difference.
Yes. So coming to the fun part of it, the activities that we parents can indulge into, which can look for a brighter future for the adolescents. I'll speak by practical examples, what I noticed when I was running the school. Number one, my hot list activity, which really makes a difference to an adolescent's life, is theater. Why theater? Because we're all speaking about self-body image issues. It all starts from there. And theater is the only activity that teaches you to shed off your real inhibitions, the real character that you wear, and absorb another character. Theater is the only thing which helps you drop off your shyness and makes you voice out your expressions and your opinions, which you usually cannot do if you're a very shy child. Number two, debating. I look at debating as something which is not confronting of ideas and talking a lot, but I really believe that adolescents who get into debating at an earlier stage, it's my personal observation that they have emerged as and evolved as very, very powerful adults, and I have seen that growth from childhood to adolescent to adults of these children who took to debating. The reason being is because debating gives you a sense of thought process and opinion, which helps you deal with your super intelligent parents, and then you can work your way out through a very, very healthy communication at home. So my own son, when I do the danda on him and I hold the stick on his head, he's a theater person and he cracks a joke and everybody starts laughing at home. And this is how, when we were talking about, when you don't go head banging at night when the mistake has happened, the theater kids, the debating kids actually convert the whole situation into a very humorous conversation, and they lead to a better, brighter conversation at home, leading to a good emotional connect. I also feel the activities which really help you are volunteering. We all are working moms, we're very busy, but if we fix one day a week where we go to the old age home, or maybe to go feed the poor. I went, with a set of children to take them to making the people who don't have footwear to wear. So we were a part of that drive. So just take out your footwear, go volunteer. Volunteering helps you build compassion. Compassion makes you a good adolescent. It takes away your mind from self-body issues. Whether you have acne and your girlfriend is not responding to you, and you've had a breakup, or you've just had a sexual encounter, you will leave behind all these issues when you're involved in something meaningful. And your brain tells you that there are deeper issues to life. Look at the harshness of life and look at what we are into. I also believe sports is a very, very important thing, especially a team sport, not an individual sport. Something like a cricket or a basketball can really help an adolescent get into that act of teamwork, feeling like a team, growing with the team, belonging to people. And I think that takes away that sense of individualistic. And I think my most favorite activity is definitely, we all throw parties, we all interact with our relatives, we all have these little get-togethers at home. I think it really works. When you allow children to create games, adolescents, just tell them that we're going to be all sitting together on the dining table, and let's kind of play a game about some game around the family. Allow them the rules to create games when you're sitting in a family setup. It leads to less drinking, Dr. Shankar. It leads to less eating because you're playing a game. It leads to the child feeling that I don't have to now catch on to my phone or the iPad because the whole big family is sitting. I have something to say to the family, and you all laugh together. Believe me, this really works with the adolescents, and you wake up with a good smile the next day. So these are my hot list activities, which I think the adolescents and the families must practice if you really, really want the adolescent darker phase to go away.
Okay, now we are running short of time, actually, but I'll have a common question to all three of you. Now, that is, how should parents treat adolescents? As friends, as competitors, as teachers, as an authoritarian, or a combination of all that? Starting with you, Ms. Gagandeep Kaur.
I think I would rather answer it this way, that you treat your adolescents with love and not attachment. None of the 4 categories I like to go with, sir, that you mentioned. Simply because प्रेम जब आप प्यार करते हैं तो आप बच्चों को वो स्पेस दे रहे हैं where they can be who they are or they want to be. You're giving them enough space to pick up the choices and make their own life ahead. But जब आप attachment या मोह में पड़ रहे हैं, which most of us are, right? And it takes a whole lot of a task. And specifically being a single mother, this is something that I always keep in my mind. कि मोह नहीं करना है कभी भी. It really backfires pathetically back. So what you're going to do? So अगर आप attachment में होगे तो क्या करोगे? आप dictate करोगे. I am telling you, I know better than you. As long as you're staying in my house, you will do as I say. And that's when the competition, authoritative dominance, and all your categories walk in. And even with a friend, it has to be okay. If you don't listen to me, then I'm not your friend. I'm unhappy with you. As long as you listen to me, my love seems conditional. I think we need to get away from that. And you need to understand your job is to shape your children or give them the best that you can. But you are not their gods. You're not here to write their destiny. They'll have to write their own destiny. You're just a headlight or a kind of a thing that can show them their path. And that's where your job ends.
Wonderfully put. I think that's right. Love, but no attachment. So that's what probably the Gita also tells us, that you should do your duty, but no attachment. And what about you, Ms. Niyamat?
I think none. I would go with Gagan as well. None of the categories. I think it would be love and respect. And as an individual, as a person, as someone who's thriving, and not as a commodity that can be kept and controlled.
Yeah. What about you, Ms. Shagun?
Well, I'd like to go in with one of those categories. And I would like to go that I think we need to be the parent. It's just that we need to change the definition of being the parent. And that is, I think, precisely why our panelists did not choose the word parent, because they know how dictative that term has become. So I wouldn't say a friend, but I would say be the facilitator parent. Because the facilitator parent will always
It's 50 hours.
will always guide, support, encourage, and inform the child, and rest, leave the child's destiny to the guiding light. And the Uparwala is always there to make the future. So we don't have to be gods to them, just be the facilitator parents.
Thank you. I think we had a wonderful session, but we also have another problem. Probably you're coming to that stage when you become a grandfather or a grandmother, when you're caught between your grandchild and your child. So the child will say, I would like to have this. And your son or daughter would say, no, don't give it. And then you are the third umpire or the umpire, and you find it extremely difficult where your love is. So that's another problem that you come across in life. Yes. Thank you very much. And on this wonderful note, I end this session. Thank you, and extremely good, valuable inputs that you give. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.